Behind the Stars,
a celebrity astrology podcast where we try to teach you astrology by looking at the birth chart of the most famous or infamous celebrity of the week.
And this week we're talking about Megan Fox.
Of course we are.
Right? Of course. We can't not talk about Megan Fox. So she's a sun in Taurus, moon in Leo, and Capricorn rising.
Ooh, that's a good big three.
Yeah, it's a really good big three. I'm excited. If you're any of these, listen up.
Okay, she was born May 16th, 1986 at 12:35 a.m. in Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
Should we start with the basic sun in Taurus? Sun in Taurus. It represents actually the dark side of Venus, which I don't think a lot of people know.
Mm-hmm.
It's ruled by Venus. Yes, it is very much the sign of self-worth, your core values, your possessions, your stuff, what's important to you. It also has to do with like stable and dependable partnership. It's a lot about, it's the sign of money for that reason, right? What else?
It's a fixed earth sign. They can be stubborn because of that fixed energy. Once they have their mind made up, it's kind of made up.
Yeah.
But
I know I have a lot of Taurus friends.
Yes.
They're my lovely challenge, as I am a Leo, and they are square to me.
Yes.
Also a fixed sign, by the way. Fixed signs are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. You stubborn motherfuckers.
And I always tend to associate them with like kind of the ones that appreciate luxury because of that Venus and good
Taurus.
food, good
All about the goodies.
good spa visits.
So like they're known for having a really good work ethic, right? But the reason they work is because they want nice shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why. I mean, some of them like to work too, and if they're really elevated Taurus, they really do find a way to enjoy life super fully. So they'll have a job that does require a lot of work, but they're very proud of it usually, and they're like, "I love doing this."
Yeah. I feel like Capricorn works because it loves the work. Taurus works because it loves the results.
Yes.
And Virgo works because it likes the details.
Yeah, and to serve and to like figure out the best way of doing things. Nerds.
Yeah.
Anyway, but Taurus is all about the juice of life. It is also the sign of like the five senses. So Taurus tends to be very sensitive to smell and taste and touch, etc. That's why they need a higher quality of smells and tastes and all that stuff. And they're willing to work for it because they want that stuff. And that's just how it is. It's a very simple sign. It's the second sign of the zodiac.
Yes.
But it's a very powerful one. It is the bull.
Yeah.
Right? All right. I think we covered that.
Yeah. Now let's move on to her moon. She got a Leo moon.
Yeah.
More fixed energy.
More fixed energy, right? Another fixed sign. So we're doubling down on some stubborn energy here.
Yes.
For sure. And my mom is a moon in Leo. So I have a lot to say about moon in Leo.
And I feel like especially the emotional side, the moon in Leo, who likes to be showy, but also like has their mind made up also. It's like once you get into like probably a fight with a Leo, they probably hold that grudge. A Leo moon holds that grudge.
Yeah. I could speak on this for sure. And I know more than one Leo moon, but my mom being the main one. I think the best analogy I've ever heard about a Leo moon is the comparison between if someone is a Leo sun versus a Leo moon. So, and this is perfect. I'm a Leo sun. My mom's a Leo moon. This is the deal.
How does that go?
Okay. So if you are a Leo sun, you're like a male lion. If you are a moon in Leo, you're
Lioness.
like a lioness. Because it's true. If you really look at the people with their moon in Leo, they are especially ruthless. They get the shit done. They have their pack. They're very loyal, very caring about their pack. And it's like people who are Leo suns, we really just want to nap all day. That whole mane is a show. We don't really want to fight. It's actually the lionesses that are doing all the hunting and the gathering, and they're the ones who are willing to do kind of the scary stuff. They're big survivalists, I would say, too.
Yeah, Leos tend to get a bad rap, but it's like you said, the moon side.
The moon side it's a different thing. So the moon is what is in charge of your emotional world, how you process emotions, and what you need on a really deep emotional level, right? So they need Leo shit to be the center of the stage.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. To feel very loved. This is the sign of romance, the honeymoon stage. It's children. It's sharing your joy. It's confidence. And I will say knowing your talent is probably number one thing about Leo.
And all these are like huge like things with Megan Fox. She's extremely protective over her kids. She's extremely romantic, maybe to a fault. Yeah. She has just a lot of like that Leo energy.
A lot of it. She really, really does. I mean, it's a sign that also usually people feel a little bit unattainable because there's like this beautiful walking in the room thing, and they can be kind of full of themselves where they don't need anybody else.
Yeah.
It seems. And it's funny because she has been in now, like she clearly really cares about being in a relationship.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then we'll talk more about that later.
Yes.
But yeah, anyway, so she needs romance. She needs fun.
Yeah.
That's the last thing we have not mentioned.
Oh, and she loves her fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this is literally the sign of fun, creativity, and again, romance and children and learning how to take the stage and have your talents be shown.
And all that's like hiding underneath her ascendant, which is Capricorn. And that's like, she has that Capricorn look to her.
Yeah.
She's like chiseled.
Yeah.
Like sharp features.
Yep.
Looks like she could cut you with a knife.
Yep. And I would say she always, not in a bad way, but she always did look older. Like,
yeah.
I mean, even at, was she in Transformers at like 18 or something?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say she looked older in a bad way, just mature. Like she looked
Yeah.
like she's been going to bars.
Yeah.
She's 25. She's been through some shit. You know what I mean? But hot as hell.
Yeah.
But like not a kid. I don't think she's ever come off like a kid or a child or like
Right.
anything like that. And I will just fun fact, a lot of models are Capricorns or rising Capricorns very much for this reason. This is the eldest earth sign, right? And on the maturity topic, predictively, people who are born with as rising Capricorns, they had to grow up fast.
Yep.
That's just predetermined. They had to grow up fast. Usually, they had to be an adult early in life. This is the sign of career.
The moneymaker.
Yeah, the moneymaker, career, purpose, contributing to society. So usually, people find their career really early in life when they are a rising Capricorn. They can have a lot of success actually earlier in life. Because they are also really ambitious, right? Capricorn is ambition. It is knowing long-term goals. It's having the ability to be patient, to see things come to fruition. It's a lot. I would say she leans more, as we see her like being older now. She's obviously very purposeful.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the spiritual path she's gone down.
Yeah.
Definitely had a career early, but I think overall, when we look at her life, when she's old as fuck, we're going to go, she really cared about having purpose.
Yeah. And that cardinal ascendant, like she's a go-getter. She has always gone for what she wanted, and she's attained it because of that fixed energy that allows her to kind of keep pushing away until she gets what she wants.
And you know what? The other thing, as this is a sign of authority, rising Capricorns typically do have something to say about their bosses and stuff. They have very strong opinions, and sometimes they don't listen to their bosses.
Well, we're going to get to that.
Yeah, we're going to get to that, but basically, she cares very much about being her own authority, for sure.
Yeah.
Partially because she had to grow up fast and in some level raise herself, I'm sure. But it's so funny because we know she got in trouble for talking about her boss. And I'm like, of course she did. Because rising Capricorns, they
Can't help it.
They have something to say about their bosses. And all my friends who are rising Capricorns have very strong opinions about their bosses. And I think it's pretty funny.
Shall we jump into our first aspect?
Yes.
Because while we're talking about that ascendant, she has Mars exalted right on that ascendant.
Yeah. Yeah. So Mars is exalted in Capricorn, considered the best spot for it to be in, where Mars does its best work, right? So conjunct the ascendant, what does that do? Tell me.
Well, it has to do with your appearance. It has to do with how the world sees you. And she is a boss bitch.
She's a boss.
She has boss bitch energy.
Yeah.
She walks into a room. You're going to notice her.
Yep.
And she's going to go straight up to you and talk to you. She's not going to cut
Fearless.
any quarters.
Yeah.
She's going to just do the thing.
She's going to do the thing. I mean, so being a rising Capricorn alone, she already is a go-getter of sorts, right?
Yeah.
She already cares about purpose and career and all these things. But now we put Mars there, which, by the way, is exactly aligned to her ascendant point. This now gives her not only ambition of Capricorn, but the drive of Mars. And sexual energy, exuding sex and like animalistic sex, not necessarily truly intimate to becoming one sex, but like you just gotta fuck that fox. Like that's literally the energy that she gives off, and she's a sex symbol. So I mean,
but it's like effortless in a way that it's like not in your face, but it somehow is like
a part of.
Yeah, it's in your face, but it's not in your face.
Yeah, there's nothing she has to do to exude this. So like the ascendant point, right? Your ascendant is kind of your subconscious mask. It is the energy you give off without trying. It's how people perceive you before they really know you. And hers is not only Capricorn-esque, it's Martian. So, right, sex, drive, war, fighting, like going for it, like all of that is Megan Fox. That's
she
what
has
she
like an intense energy to her,
Very
intensity.
Intense. An intensity. And I think, I just want to say this real quick. I think we will say, because she is a public figure, that intensity she has is also a result of the fact that she has her midheaven in Scorpio.
Yeah.
Right. That point of your public image is in the literal sign of intensity. And on top of it, she has Mars conjunct her ascendant.
Well, she also has her midheaven conjunct Pluto, too.
And her midheaven is conjunct Pluto. So, like, intense is one major word to describe Megan Fox.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about midheaven conjunct Pluto, or do we want to come back to that?
Let's come back to it.
Okay.
Let's come back to it.
Because she has other personal planets that are doing some things.
Like
her Venus, which if you think about Megan Fox, you think she has definitely a strong Venus in there.
Yeah. And it's an interesting one. It's a challenged one.
Yeah.
And it's an intense one. Before we fully move on, I just wanted to mention that Mars is a very like independence themed planet. And I find it really interesting because she definitely is a very independent person, I guarantee you. Like, she does probably a lot on her own, and it makes a lot of her own decisions.
Yeah.
Being that rising Capricorn and having Mars there. But she was in a long-term relationship, had children, did all of that. She clearly loves love. That has everything to do with her being a Taurus with a moon in Leo, because Taurus is all about partnership. Leo is all about romance. But I just wanted to say, I think this is the complexity of Megan Fox. She may be very partnership focused, but she's also very independent.
Yeah.
I just don't want to miss that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go on to her Venus.
Yes.
She has it in Gemini.
That is you have some thoughts on
I know, because
Venus
again,
and Gemini.
my mother, my mom has Venus in Gemini and is also a Leo moon. They're not the same person, but anyway. So Venus in Gemini is a really interesting one. It's known, like, we read really old astrology books. It's always like, multiple marriages aspect.
Yeah.
Like, somebody with Venus and Gemini cannot just get married once, settle down, and be done.
Yes.
Okay, but it's funny because it's kind of true. Like, I'm sure there are people out there with Venus and Gemini who figured it out, and it has a lot to do with the rest of their chart. But what the reason is because people with Venus and Gemini love Venus to change. To be a butterfly, to be something that people try to grasp. She loves to talk. She's clever. She thinks of love maybe even in a too logical, rational way at times is the downside of having Venus and Gemini. Like, if the logic's not there, they can have trouble settling, settling down. But really, she's going to change. Being a Venus and Gemini means she's going to change. She's going to have a lot of phases of being a different person. And when you have Venus and Gemini, you're changing. And whoever you're partnered with, you want to be like your twin.
Yeah.
It's the sign of the twin, of doubles, right? Yeah. So new twin, every time you have a new phase and you're a different person, right? Yeah. And you were saying, too, like, she was like a granola lady.
Yeah.
When she was with, his name's Brian.
Brian Austin Green, yeah.
Brian Austin Green. That's a really good name.
But no, like, you think about, like, the Venus in Gemini, because it's a mutable sign, so it is about change. And it's about adapting and becoming with, like, who your partner is. Yeah. And so when she was with Brian Austin Green, she was very much, like, giving off, like, housewife vibes. Like, she was, like, very in that, like, mommy mode.
Yeah, mommy mode, making the house, doing the stuff. I think she loved it.
Yeah. And then when she got with Machine Gun Kelly, it was very much, like, rock star girlfriend.
Yeah. And it's like, what?
But
don't hate it, though. Don't get me wrong.
But what's funny is you mentioned, like, how Venus and Gemini can be, like, multiple marriages. But, like, in modern time, it's more like multiple partnerships. But I think because she is Capricorn rising, so she's ruled, her entire chart is ruled by Saturn, that she has an affinity for tradition. Yeah. And marriage is very traditional. And so I think that, like, there's a reason why she wants to get engaged and get married and do these things, because she strives for certain amounts of tradition. I agree. Yeah. And I don't think we even touched on that. It is the sign of tradition. And Taurus is also usually very traditional as well. Yeah. I think Capricorn's like masculine traditional, whereas Taurus is feminine traditional. Exactly. Yeah. So she feels very traditional. Yeah. So it's oh my gosh, it's so funny. Like, I even think of all the rituals she's probably created with MGK, right? Like, they've created like all kinds of their own traditions. Like, she's gonna, she's definitely forming her own. But even like the way that she talks about him and their relationship, she takes a very submissive role to him. But I think it's because she has that kind of like attraction to the traditional like man-woman type thing, and especially for a woman who is so independent and dominant, to be submissive to a man, like that's love for her. Yeah, I think so. I think for sure she probably loves it. Well, Yeah.
Yeah. And in addition, just to round out Venus and Gemini and what that means. So we have that whole twin thing, a lot of changing in life, yes. But on top of it, you know, words of affirmation. This is the sign of words.
Yeah.
So words of affirmation are huge to her. She needs a mental connection. This is an air sign. She needs mental connection with her partner. She needs to be able to communicate with them. There does need to be, to her, some kind of logic and rationale involved.
Yes. Which,
yeah.
when we get to the synastry,
And play.
when we get to the synastry, there is one aspect that they have that they share that is perfect reason why she is in love with Machine Gun Kelly.
Okay, cool. I'm
We'll
excited
get to
to
that
hear.
in a little bit.
He went on.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get the idea of Venus and Gemini. They're also playful, clever, words, jokes, ha. Jack of all trades, usually. Tons of curiosity. Also why they end up maybe having multiple marriages. They're very curious people. But anyway, okay, in addition, the actual aspect we want to talk about is that she has Venus in Gemini opposite Uranus that is in Sagittarius.
Yes.
All right.
So like Uranus likes to disrupt. It likes to like sudden changes. And so, I mean, Megan met and fell in love with Machine Gun Kelly extremely quickly while she was still with Brian Austin Green.
Oh, she did?
So yeah, she was filming a movie with Machine Gun Kelly and fell for him.
Yeah.
And was like essentially like, okay, I'm moving on. But she had been in and out of with Brian Austin Green a few times, which is also very
Up
Venus.
and down and this and that. That's very Venus opposite Uranus. So basically it's like chaos in love, breakups and getting back together, sudden just breakups after a long period of time. Like, and how it makes her feel, like instead of just telling you guys what we could predict in her life, because she has her Venus and Uranus opposite, what she actually craves, right, when it comes to a love relationship is a little chaos.
Spontaneity.
She needs spontaneity. She needs adventure. She also needs to feel like she's still an independent person within her partnership. That's really important. And sometimes, as Uranus is this like revolutionary, unorthodox, anti-tradition planet.
Yeah, especially in Sagittarius.
Because that's all about expansion and going to higher realms and not living a very basic life, right? That everyone tells you to live. You know, she's also attracted to really unorthodox relationships. She's interested in maybe being in a partnership that's a little different for whatever reason, whether that's they have an open relationship or they allow themselves to be together for a really long time before they get married, when usually you only have a few years and then you're supposed to get married. There's a million different ways it could go.
I could see like this being like a polyamorous placement.
Totally. There are definitely people into polyamory who have this aspect. That's
So,
one version.
If you have Venus opposite Uranus,
and you're thinking about
multiple partners might be for you.
It might be, especially if your Venus is in Gemini.
Yeah.
I mean, my goodness. So, yeah. So there's all of that. And I do want to touch on that. Like, that doesn't mean that she can never be in a stable relationship,
No.
which is hilarious because she's a Taurus. So that's
She was also with
what you want.
Brian Austin Green for a very long time. They have 3 kids together.
I wouldn't call that a failed relationship.
No, not by any means.
I don't think so.
But you can even see within their relationship, because they got engaged when she was like 19 years old. She was like, but she like not forced him to be with her, but he was reluctant to be with her because of the age difference, because she was so young. And she's like,
I'm old.
No, she's like, you're supposed to be with me. I'm an old soul. Like, this is who I am. And so she convinced him like, oh, like we should date. And they got engaged.
That's
and
pretty unorthodox to convince
an
older
man,
guy in Hollywood to date you.
Exactly.
That's usually very easy to accomplish, just so you know. Really easy.
Yeah. And so they got engaged.
It's crazy.
They broke up. They got back together. They got married. They had 2 kids. They broke up.
Okay.
They called off the divorce, had a child, and then they got divorced. Yeah. So that's lots of ping pong and back and forth, sudden changes.
Yeah.
Lots of sudden changes.
Lots of sudden changes. So there you go. And lastly, what we'll say about this is just Venus does represent your like mother's psychological effect on you when it comes to the idea of being a woman or womanhood. You know, obviously if you're a guy, it doesn't really, you know, it still is going to have effect on you about what you think about women and womanhood and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Anyway, point is like we could say, well, she has this aspect. So most likely that erratic up and down energy is from her mom.
Yeah.
And she probably also herself has a very like up and down idea of womanhood itself and just trying to figure it out, and probably is going to try to revolutionize the idea of what a woman is.
Yes.
because she has this aspect. And I would say right now we were just talking about, we're like, she's come out and been like, I'm a different role model, right?
Yeah, she's
for
said
women.
because like they sexualized her so much when she was younger, and not necessarily by her choice, even though she like was sexually liberated and all this stuff. But like when they would ask her about how she feels about being a role model for girls, she's like, well, I want to be a different kind of role model, or I am a different kind of role model for girls, where it's like you can be independent and sexy and like be prude if you feel like being it, or be whatever you feel like being, like, because she decided not to have sex with anyone like until her first boyfriend, and then after that never had sex with a guy until Brian Austin Green.
And
So
people
like,
be out here thinking she's a hoe.
yeah, exactly.
She's not at all.
But the other thing I thought is kind of funny is that
great.
like the Uranus like against the femininity of Venus, she has talked about how she's like this gorgeous, beautiful woman on the outside. She's like, at home, she's like a slob.
Yeah.
She leaves clothes everywhere. She forgets to flush the toilet.
Gross.
She's like, if I don't wear makeup, then I look like a bum. And I'm like, I just think it's so funny that she has like this, she challenges femininity, but also is the epitome of femininity at the same time. It's like that push and pull of the opposition.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about her Venus square Jupiter, which she kind of doubles down in a way on everything he just said. And I think I want to round it out by saying like that instability, that all over the place, the erraticness that she craves in a relationship, like I said, it comes from something with her mom, whether her mom was that way itself or she witnessed her mom in a partnership that was like that, whatever. That's where she gets it from. And also Uranus is a generational planet, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to say, if it's her Venus and her personal planet opposing this generational planet, that tells us she probably doesn't actually relate to her generation a ton and is almost in opposition. And in my opinion, when you see this, it's almost like I think she's more a part of like the revolution of more like what people are going to think in her kids' generation. She doesn't relate as much to her own, if that makes sense.
Or just feels like external to generations. Like, so like she doesn't
in general, all generations.
All
like
generations,
she's in her own kind of world.
Exactly.
Which she knows she feels like an alien.
Yeah. I love aliens.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we do.
Come on, Sag.
I've got one over there. We might be two of them. We don't know. Anyway, okay. Do we want to do Venus square Jupiter?
Yeah. Let's
Okay. So let's see. Where does she have this? She has Venus square Jupiter. Why don't I leave this here? Okay. So this is a juicy aspect to have. So squares, right? They cause friction. But when you have a square with a personal planet of your own, like Venus, and Jupiter, the only planet of like optimism, abundance, positivity, freedom, it's like all positive words pretty much, besides the fact that it's over the top, which we know can be bad in certain instances. Any aspect with Jupiter ends up having a lot of positive sides.
Yeah.
So even if it's a square or an opposition to Jupiter or a conjunction, there's a lot of goodies that come with it.
Yeah.
Jupiter always comes with goodies. Okay, so first and foremost, this aspect makes it so she's an over-the-top person in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Right? But that can make her overly generous, overly loving, overly expressive, just over the top, overspending, which could get, bite her in the ass at times. But that over like generosity and love, the dark side of that is that she does also crave a lot of that back. She wants over the top love coming her way, over the top money coming her way. We see that for sure, which can lead you down a lot of toxic roads. Anyway, so there's that. There's also an over relation to the feminine. So as in like being the girl who gets up early to put on her makeup before her husband wakes up so that she's like always beautiful. That kind of a thing. But it also gives her the energy of over femininity, and she exudes that.
Yeah.
So again, there's a positive side to it. This makes it so she probably attracts money more easily, attracts relationships, attracts like love more easily. So there's a good and there's a bad side to it.
But she also like even said like she didn't ask to be sexualized. She didn't ask to be this like the sex symbol of a generation.
No.
She didn't ask for these things, but like Jupiter makes it so that she can't help those things.
Yeah.
It puts her on such a high scale of the world that like people are going to notice that Venus and notice that Uranus because it is being like or it's being squared
Jupiter,
by Jupiter in both directions.
She had no choice here.
Yeah.
This is just, Jupiter is bigger than any other planet. It's like everybody sees it. Like there's just no hiding somebody who's like Venus square Jupiter. There just isn't. And I think probably the most positive part of this aspect is that faith that she has, right? So
Oh yeah.
this gives her she herself is probably very positive most of the time, trying to see the glass half full, trying to personally grow, caring a lot about personal growth is a big part of this. And again, match with that Capricorn rising. Usually people with Capricorn rising are also very interested in personal growth. So she definitely cares a lot about going through a revolution in her life and getting better and all that stuff. So anyway, and faith. Now, faith is a huge part of her life.
That's what you look at, like the Venus, which is like an attraction and like an analytical attraction because she has it in Gemini,
right?
And it's touching that Jupiter in Pisces, which is all about spirituality. And so that's why she's attracted so much to astrology and has taken the time to like study it herself and looked at other religions and all these different like ways of thinking because she analytically wants to understand faith and understand spirituality.
Exactly. Well done. That's very well said there.
Thank you.
Yes. And in addition, positivity, faith being important, but also there's this weird thing. This is where the square can suck. Where Jupiter is about relating and Venus is about loving, and she has those in two very different positions. Basically, it can make it so sometimes she can be in love with someone, but then have trouble actually relating to them. Or she can relate to someone, but have trouble actually loving them. And it's weird, and I know that sounds confusing, but if you've ever been in that position, you understand what I'm saying. I've been in that position.
Well, I think there's also the feeling of like a curiosity about somebody, and people might misconstrue that as like an attraction or...
Yeah, she has her Venus in the curious Gemini.
Yeah, and just because you're curious about somebody or you're like... you could be infatuated with somebody but without being in love with them,
right?
Or like you could just be like, okay, that is the most interesting person to me in the world, but I don't want to like fuck them,
right? Exactly.
I don't want to love them, I don't want to do any of that, but I so obsessed about like who that person is and what they're all about.
She's probably gotten this situation quite a few times.
Oh yeah, people probably read her message wrong.
Yeah,
but that kind of leads into my next aspect.
Your next aspect. Okay. I guess what else do I want to say about this? I do want to say, again, Venus is representative of the feminine side and what the mother teaches you about the feminine, blah, 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 blah. So what this kind of shows us is that she probably grew up, this square shows us, you know what? She probably grew up in a situation where she didn't relate to how she was told a woman needed to be. And so I immediately thought, she went to fucking Catholic school.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Very rigid, lots of rules, lots of, specific outfits and whatever. And so I feel like she's not relating to the type of woman that she's quote unquote supposed to be.
I think it's that, and I think
and
it's
maybe
because
her mom. We don't know anything. There's no information on her parents.
I think also when you're an extremely feminine presenting person, people want to project like traditional feminine things onto you, and she's not. She's edgy. She's a little bit of a prude when it comes to certain things, but also
but
like out there.
Too.
Yeah, but then she's also bisexual,
right?
And so it's like she doesn't want to exist in that like cookie cutter thing of what a woman is supposed to be.
Right. So I'm saying, like, I see this square, this like Venus Jupiter square. It's so obvious in her going to Catholic school because I doubt she related fully to what they told her woman's supposed to be. Then she became a sex symbol, which she didn't ask for, and got overly sexualized, and she didn't relate to what everyone in Hollywood told her she was supposed to be. She's never going to relate to whatever anybody else's idea is about what a woman should be, which I think is very cool.
But it's also funny that
and sad for her and annoying for her, though.
Yeah.
But very cool.
But like the sexuality side of things and like the sexualizing of her is fascinating to me because it's not like she started off as being like this like dramatic porno-y actor. Like she was on sitcoms.
Yeah.
Like she started off in sitcom comedy.
Yeah.
And then she became this like sex symbol.
Yeah, because you couldn't help it. I mean,
yeah.
It just was what it was. Okay, let me just make sure I don't miss anything else. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, and lastly about this, because I can't help but think of Machine Gun Kelly, of course, because we know he is a Pisces, right?
Yes.
He's a Pisces, but he has something in Gemini, doesn't he? Is it his moon? His moon is in Gemini, I believe.
I'm not sure.
Okay, my point is, I know he has Gemini somewhere. My point is that the right person for her, as in, or at least for a long time, is somebody who kind of is the combination of both Pisces and Gemini, because that satisfies both her Venus, that satisfies her Jupiter, so she can relate and she can love. So somebody who has some kind of faith, spirituality, or is a true artist, combined with that Gemini energy of some logic and quick wit and rationale and the ability to be really adaptable. So someone that she's really going to fully love is going to have all of that, or else that square is going to make her be like, I don't like it. You're leaning too far this way. You're leaning too far that way.
Yeah.
They kind of have to have both. And MGK does have both somewhere. I know he has Gemini somewhere. I remember.
Yeah.
Okay. What did you want to talk about?
So we were talking about like mixed messages and things not like adding up, and her saying one thing and it really coming across as another.
Yeah.
But she has her moon square Mercury.
Yeah.
And so you'll have it where your emotions and the words that are coming out of your mouth don't necessarily line up. And in your mind, you might be speaking your emotions, but your emotions also change pretty quickly because the moon is a fast moving planet.
All of our emotions change quickly.
Yes. And if you have a feeling of expressing your emotions, but those are changing over time, people might be like, get whiplash. Like, oh, she's feeling this way one day, she's feeling this way another day.
Because we're not supposed to share our feelings all the time.
Right. but it also like can build up a habit of foot and mouth syndrome.
That's pretty much what Mercury square the moon is, and she has had her foot in her mouth
multiple times.
You'd
think she has a foot
I
fetish.
was just about to say it. I know you were thinking. Yeah, so it's difficult. She has to learn to work with this square in her life. She has to learn. Part of her purpose is to learn when it is time to share how she is feeling, and when it is time to go, maybe not.
And the thing's, she's always speaking how she feels. The problem is how she feels changes.
It changes, and you know what? Like, I think back to that interview where she fucked up everything, and she said the thing about Michael Bay. She was a kid, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Like,
but also, Leo is playful, and so all of the things that she's saying,
she wasn't taking it that seriously when she said it. She didn't think this was going to be some big bomb dropped on her career.
But the thing is, she also took ownership of it too.
Yeah, which I really respect.
Yeah,
by the way.
If you don't know the story, she was on Transformers, and she had talked about Michael Bay and made a joke about him being Hitler.
I thought it was funny.
And
I thought
so then
not about him being Hitler, but about him being Hitler-esque and wanting to be Hitler on set.
And then Steven Spielberg was a producer on the movie, and so from there it was like, okay, we need to get her off this movie, and nobody took ownership to it because both Steven Spielberg and Michael Bay said that it wasn't them that was trying to get her off the movie. That like they're like nobody's offended, like blah blah blah, but she still got kicked off the movie. And she's like, you know what? I said those words. It came out of my mouth. I take ownership of it, and that's what it is.
Yeah. And didn't she later like go and apologize to him and say, I hope the movie's great? Like,
yeah, and she went and she supported the third movie even though she wasn't in it.
Honestly, really cool of her.
Yeah, like
super cool of her. I think she's probably a really fucking cool person. Anyway, is that all we want to say about the moon square Mercury?
Yeah, I mean I think that's the gist of like how it shows up for her is essentially she also is like very expressive with her emotions. Look at the way with her and MGK are on like a red carpet. Like she's not hiding the way she feels about him.
No.
And she didn't hide the way she felt about Brian Austin Green when like they were breaking up. Like she was very truthful and honest about.
I find her refreshing.
Yeah. So many people want to like skirt around subjects or like play things down or whatever it is, but it's like, you know what, just speak it how it is.
Can I tell you, I think that she really truly is an old soul, and she got into Hollywood so people were basically, get on our show.
Yeah.
And I think if she's truly an old soul and an alien, like, she hates this place. I'm born and raised in LA. The amount of bullshit and liars and opportunists you have to deal with, and the people poking and the prodding of you and telling you got to do this. She's probably like, how boring.
Yeah.
I'm sure she's just over it. Anyway, but I really like her and I want to see her in things. Okay, I do want to talk about this. This is the last aspect. Yes. Okay, so she has her midheaven in Scorpio that we mentioned at the very beginning of this episode. But it's conjunct Pluto. And this is really interesting. So basically, as the midheaven is your point of purpose, career, long-term goals, and your public image. And this is the planet of power and intensity, and a lot of the times exuding like a very sexual energy, but also this deeply psychological planet. So when we have the midheaven and Pluto come together like that, you get people who sometimes their career midheaven is literally to like be a psychologist. That's one very simple example. But really it's also, it can be, you have a very intense public image, a very sexualized public image. It definitely means that you probably feel part of your purpose is to look at all of the shadows and deep psychology and the mysteries of the world. Pluto's all about the underworld, the mysteries of life, what's in the dark, all that kind of stuff. And we know, obviously, hello.
She wants to look into the dark crevices of the entire
universe. Yeah, she's loves all the creepy stuff, right? So, and it also, usually people with their midheaven conjunct Pluto, in addition to her being a rising Capricorn, they usually have really powerful careers early on because they're very intense about having a purpose in a career. So they usually, they're like getting that, they're focused on that like really early in life.
What's kind of funny is that she's so outspoken about the way she feels and her beliefs and all this stuff, but I feel like that Pluto MC still makes her kind of mysterious in a way.
Yes, her public image is also mysterious in addition to intense.
Yeah, and so even though she could give 12 million interviews and tell her exactly everything that's going on, people are still going to be like, who's Megan Fox?
Yeah.
She's an enigma.
Because she really is.
Yeah.
Because now I've watched a lot of interviews and she's answered so many questions and I still feel like that, but I don't feel it in the Beyonce way.
No.
Where Beyonce is very
she's a Virgo. She's like very intent in how those things are kept and everything. Whereas like Megan Fox lays it all out and still yet you're like, who the fuck is this girl?
Yeah, who is she?
Yeah.
Where Beyonce like chooses to be a mystery.
Yeah.
She just is a mystery, no matter how much she tells us. And I just want to say, lastly, magnetic, because my favorite. Whenever Pluto touches something, it makes you a magnetic, and she really is magnetic. So
yeah.
All right, beautiful. Should we talk transits?
Sure. Let's do some transits.
All right, we're gonna whip through these. So we were looking at the aspects of the sky compared to her birth chart and seeing what the hell was going on starting on that February 12th when all this MGK shit and her deleting her Instagram and then she following Eminem and all this stuff, right? Okay. And now we're at February 28th when we're recording this, so we're also looking for around now. So first of all, she had Mars come and align with her Chiron, the point of like wounds, almost exactly on February 12th. Now, when Mars comes and aligns with your natal Chiron, that can actually be a really great time. It could be a time where you're feeling energized about old wounds and like you're finally wanting to process them or talk about them or feel empowered by them. And sometimes it can be Mars comes by and it just kind of reopens that gash, that wound. Or it can literally be the creating of a new wound. So I don't know if this is a creating of a wound, maybe, or maybe MGK, she was worried about MGK cheating a while back, and this is a reopening of that wound.
That scab just got ripped off.
Like, who knows? But that's crazy that that's exact on that day. Also, we had, let's see, the Mercury was opposing her moon. So that explains why she very quickly was like, I'm deleting my Instagram, and like kind of emotional foot and mouth. It's that
she pulled the trigger too quickly.
She pulled the trigger real quick. So basically when Mercury is opposing your natal moon, you usually end up like word vomiting your emotions and usually in a way that gets you in trouble.
Yeah.
And Mercury is the planet of social media, so that's tied in.
What's funny though is we talked about how like those emotions change so quickly for her.
Yeah.
And it was like she deleted everything and then she hopped back on to say like everything's fine, no one's getting in between us, no like banshees or like AI bots or whatever it is. And then she like hopped on the MGK's guitarist like Instagram to comment on her and be like, welcome to Hollywood, this is your first like dipping your toe into what it's like to be a part of a scandal, because everyone assumed that MGK cheated on Megan with his guitarist.
I thought that was so cool of Megan to be like, stop doing this to her. She is not the problem. Like, what a cool... When was the last time you heard any lady doing that?
No.
Ever. They don't take the time to do that. They're like, no, I'm dealing with my whatever. I'm like, you are so cool. I think Megan Fox is super cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's interesting. She also has the South Node coming to alignment with her midheaven and Pluto. And this can be a big indication of like the end of a massive karmic cycle that is very public. It could also mean simultaneously or separately the beginning of a new karmic cycle, because like you could see the South Node crossing someone's MC and being like, oh my God, they're just getting into a very public relationship. Right. Or it can be an ending, and we have Pluto in there, so it's going to be intense, and there's probably going to be themes of deep psychology and sex and intimacy and all of this. We're obviously seeing this. And by the way, that only happens once every 18 years, so it's actually a big, big deal. Venus is, I want to point out, Venus is approaching her true north node. By mid-March, so in a couple weeks, they're going to align. And this is sometimes a time where it's like destined romantic moment. It can be in beginning. It could be ending. So I have a feeling we're going to see the conclusion of this right around like mid-March. We're going to find out what the fuck. Are they together? Are they not together?
Yeah.
I feel like we'd find out around then. And lastly, I just want to mention that Mars retrograde really has hit her Venus in Gemini so many times. And it's been hitting it since in October, in November, and it's going to hit again. Let's see, it's going to be March 10th. So right around when that Venus true north node is happening, that alignment, it's also when Mars is going to hit her Venus again. So again, I think we're going to find out a lot in that time period.
Well, and then her Venus is going to move into that Mars is going to move into her 7th house.
Yeah.
So once that kind of gets resolved, I think she's going to be having to deal with those 7th house issues.
She's either going to become single, or like be finally putting in the work to separate from him, or putting in the work to say we're doing this.
Yeah.
But it's going to be one of those two. And I did notice that the last time Mars was in Gemini was actually right as she was becoming famous for the first time.
Really?
The last time there was a Mars retrograde in Gemini.
Wow.
So it's interesting because I feel like Megan Fox has reappeared again almost.
I think she's just as famous now as she was when she first started.
Exactly. So that's really interesting that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to speed through these. So let's see. I just want to point out Uranus has been conjunct her natal Mercury for a couple of years. Uranus moves very slowly. So all this chaos in her daily life, which involves who she's partnered with very much, your daily life is affected by who the fuck is living with you, who's your roommate, anyway. So chaos in her daily life is a theme and will be a theme for another couple of years for sure. And in 2008, when she became a sex symbol, that was right when Pluto entered Capricorn, which is her rising sign, so giving a lot of power to how she comes off, giving her even more magnetism, giving her more notoriety. Anyway, all of that.
Well, even just like being in co-presence with that Mars on her ascendant, like that was going to trigger that too.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. She has Mars at 9. Her ascendant and Mars are at 19 Capricorn, and this was just when Pluto actually entered Capricorn. I'm unsure as to what happened maybe when they really exactly aligned. But as Pluto did enter that sign, that Martian energy, that Capricorn energy, it was totally riled up, right? And then when she did that infamous article we were talking about where she technically talked shit on Michael Bay, what did we have there? Mars was exactly opposite her Mars. Exactly opposite her Mars. So if you find where your Mars is, okay? And when you hear that Mars is in the opposing sign, this is like when you're going to feel a little more egotistical, feel a little more independent, feel like you want to really like maybe fight even. Yeah. You want to make your statement. She did, and it is not good. So usually it has bad results when you decide because you're too ego-driven at that time is the idea. So you're going to end up, foot and mouthing or.
Well, I mean, you think about it also, the descendant is like your partnerships. Yeah. And she destroyed her biggest partnerships of like her career. Yeah. Like her with Shia LaBeouf, her with Michael Bay. Those relationships like dissolved like that.
Yeah. So just FYI, you got Mars opposing your Mars, just zip your fucking lip because you're going to be a little bit too much and you're not going to even realize you're being too much. Yeah. Is the thing. So let's see what else we have. And Jupiter was opposite her moon also. So going over-expressing in a way that's going to get you in trouble. And she did. And she did it in a really like fun, blunt way, like Jupiter would love it. Yeah. And it was not a good idea. She also had the nodes squaring her nodes. So it's like destined to a lot of ending relationships and kind of your path gets redefined and switches around in a way that you didn't think it would be when the nodes square your nodes usually. And lastly, she got a divorce when you would expect. Okay, Venus was weirdly aligning with her Uranus. It also hit her Saturn. She had the South Node conjunct her Saturn. So, like, the ending of commitments is big. And the Sun was also conjunct her South Node. So, the highlighting of what needs to end. Yeah. So, a lot of, like, highlighting of end happening, especially when it comes to commitments. Yeah. Whew. Sorry, we tried to keep it short, and we couldn't.
We can briefly go over some synastry, and then we'll be done.
The synastry. Yeah, I forgot.
But these are pretty quick, and like these are just interesting things. And these are things that you can go look at your chart, your boyfriend or girlfriend charts, your partner charts, or friends, family, whatever it is, to see how like you relate with them.
Yeah, synastry.
When it comes to their IC, so where you feel at home.
It's the bottom of the chart.
The bottom of your chart, it's where you feel all of your secrets are hidden, where you feel at home. MGK's IC is conjunct Megan's moon.
Oh, yeah.
And
She definitely feels at home with him.
And we know her moon is like where she definitely has a lot of energy
Yeah,
going
she's got
on.
a lot of energy going on.
And then inversely, Megan's IC is conjunct MGK's sun.
Yeah, so they... Okay, wait,
They're
so
like,
it's...
I think we talked about this before. They're kind of like each other's mothers and fathers
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah, because wait, it's her moon on his IC, so he's feeling mother energy from her, and she's feeling father energy from him, which I know sounds a little creepy, but really a good partner does have a little bit of like,
Yeah.
there should be like a drop of caretaker, not an over.
Well,
theme.
your partner should know how to take care of you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Not be your caretaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we talked about this before, where about like, she speaks her mind, and but the thing is, she and MGK speak the same language because their Mercuries are conjunct.
Yeah, they're both in Taurus.
Yes.
Yeah. So both stubborn thinkers too.
And then when it comes to Brian Austin Green, Megan's moon was conjunct Brian's Venus.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a very classic, super bonding aspect. Oh, I remember looking up their wedding day. She made sure that Venus was conjunct her moon on that day.
Really?
Smart lady.
I love that. And then Megan's Mars is trine Brian's moon. So you have like a lot of these like blending and free-flowing energies that are really about like the feminine, the masculine, the emotion. And they really just kind of all mesh really well together.
Yeah, it's not, when you look up two people's charts in synastry, don't let any astrologer tell you like this is the one or not the one. There's no way to tell.
It's not just Venus and Mars.
It's not just
sun and moon. It's any aspect, and you have to look into that aspect and see like what those two planets and those energies and how they interact and how they intermingle.
Oh yeah, and he has Neptune and Saturn and Uranus all in Capricorn, all in her first house. Oh wow, yeah, that's a lot.
And I believe his
Venus is in Pisces.
His Venus is conjunct her Jupiter.
Yeah, that's hilarious because she wants to go over the top in love.
She's so over the top with
and
him.
This makes it even more
so the
over the top.
The more
together.
over the top she goes, the more he's into it.
Yeah, exactly.
And vice versa. So they just kind of keep feeding into that more love energy.
So that's why I'm not surprised that when she got pissed, she went over the top in retaliation. They're going to be over the top. Does it sound toxic because it is? Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, you know what? That's what you like, a little toxicity.
Listen, after doing Pamela Anderson's chart, if I hear one more person be like, so they did this huge romantic thing, I can't help it. I'm just like, I'm scared.
Yeah.
Because almost always when you hear things are over the top like that, it's because they're overcompensating for some other shit. So anyway, who knows? But he's a Taurus. Oh, he is a Taurus. Wow. Okay. All right. We'll shut up about MGK. But yeah, they have a lot of connections. There's no mystery as to why they're very attracted to each other and could probably work out, but we don't know. You know, there's free will he has, and we don't know what he's done with his free will. So
there's lots of stuff going on.
Free willy.
Yeah, and then especially with all these outer planets going into different signs, we're all going through changes in the next year.
Oh my God, it's gonna be so insane starting in March.
Yeah.
End of March, by the way. Anyway, okay.
But we will keep track of them, and you keep track of us.
Yes.
Because you can follow us on YouTube, follow the podcast, and you can follow us. You can follow me at Evan Burke LA.
And I'm at Astro Betch, BETCH.
And we will see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye.
Hats off, baby.